Hi everybody and welcome to this webinar, Let's Get Graphical, to find out the latest news on Maestro Graphics. Thanks a lot for taking the time to join us today. My name's Craig Wilson from Avid, and we're going to start with a little look at the agenda for the next half an hour, 40 minutes or so, for all the various things which we're going to be showing and sharing with you. So we're going to do some introductions to the panel who are going to be joining me today. And then we're going to take a quick look at an overview of what Maestro Graphics is. But then the key part of today really is looking at some of the things which are new as part of Maestro Graphics, and then having a live demonstration where we're going to take a look at Maestro Designer, Maestro News, and Maestro as part of MediaCentral Cloud UX, and really illustrating how Maestro, from creation all the way to play out, is a sort of critical part of an integrated, fully working solution. And then at the end, we're going to have a question and answer session. So I've got some great presenters to joining me today. So my name's Craig Wilson. I am the product evangelist for Media and Cloud here at Avid. But with me today, we're going to have Martin Appleton. Martin is our product manager for Maestro. We're going to be joined by Ola Kofton. Ola is a solutions specialist, and she'll be doing the live demonstration for us. And also we're with Amir Hochfeld as well. And Amir is the director of product management as well. Now, we want this to be as interactive a session as possible. So if you're joining on Zoom, I'm sure you're pretty familiar with how to submit questions in a Zoom session. There is the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you can type in the questions there. And we'll do our best to answer them either in the chat or to answer them live in the course of the webinar. If you're joining us on any of the Avid social channels, and thanks a lot if you're taking the time to join us there, please feel free to type in any comments or questions in the channel that you're on. We will be monitoring those social channels as well, so we can keep track of the questions there. And again, we'll do our best to answer them live in the session itself. So before we move into the sort of presentation from Martin and looking at some of the newer things and setting out a bit more about Maestro Graphics, we're going to share a quick video with you, really to set out a little bit about what Maestro Graphics is, and also about some of the new things which are in Maestro Graphics as well. So bear with me 1 second, where I'm just going to go ahead now, and let's have a look at the video. Give your stories and channels the look they deserve with the new Maestro Graphics. From creation through to playout and control, Maestro is a powerful suite of graphics design and production tools tightly integrated into any workflow, from news to sports and channel branding. And now, it's not just creative flexibility which Maestro brings to your operation, but business flexibility too. Maestro is available as a software-only solution and through subscription. That means if you're new to Maestro, you start with a lower cost of entry through subscription, choosing your own hardware. Existing Maestro customers can upgrade with ease, as any current templates and designs simply work, and you're always on the latest version. Subscription is also the perfect way to prepare your graphics workflows for your journey to the cloud. Maestro integrates with any newsroom system, and with MediaCentral Cloud UX, journalists can add and preview their graphics right in their editing timeline. Use Graphics too in your craft editor of choice. Give your teams the tools to create eye-catching high-end graphics, animations, virtual 3D objects, video wall content, and more. Gain the ultimate in flexibility with the new software-only and subscription offers. This is Maestro Graphics, now even more flexible, simpler, and accessible. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview of Maestro Graphics. For now, I'm going to hand across to Martin, who's really going to delve into things in a bit more detail. So Martin, I'll hand across to you.
Thank you very much, Craig. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to go through our presentation today of the next generation of Maestro Graphics solution. And in this new release, which is coming. We have a new update coming out in a couple of days from now. We are basing this on off-the-shelf hardware platforms, initially from Dell and later also from HP early next year. Now, this is a full suite of tools designed to meet every graphics production need, whether it's for news, sport, election coverage, branding, or other special events. Now, with the introduction of this new platform, it's fully backwards compatible with content that has been authored in earlier versions of the Maestro Graphics Suite. Whether you're already doing this on the HDVG platform or Maestro Engine, all of the content that you've created will move forwards to this new platform as well and be fully compatible. Now, of course, we're tightly integrated with the rest of the Avid product portfolio, especially MediaCentral and also Media Composer. And we're going to look a little bit later at the integration that we have with MediaCentral Cloud UX and how this can be used as part of the production workflow with graphics. Now, we can also use this new hardware environment in the existing environment that has Maestro Engine hardware in it. The same versions of the software are available for both the Maestro Engine and the new off-the-shelf hardware. Also with this release, we're moving over to subscription-based software solution. Craig, next slide, please. So as we said before, this is tightly integrated with Avid production workflow, offering a complete end-to-end process for graphic artists. Designers can store, share, and retrieve graphics inside the MediaCentral environment, making them available to multiple sites within the MediaCentral environment. It's an intuitive workflow. Intuitive graphics workflow for journalists that allows them to take content that's been created in Maestro Graphics and use this inside MediaCentral. Operators can then access this graphic content and use it in their productions easily, whether this is content that they're adding data to themselves or content that journalists have added to the rundown for them. Of course, we can also be integrated with video walls and other augmented reality environments. So not only do the graphics suitable for over-the-air broadcast, they can also be used as part of the studio production workflow. Now, this next generation move for Maestro Graphics gives us a future-proof platform. We're moving over to be Windows-based, so it's a secure, easily managed piece of IT infrastructure that can be part of the rest of the broadcast environment that is managed by the IT team. The software will be deployed on Avid certified hardware. We're taking platforms from Dell, verifying that they're running the software correctly, and also allowing us to set performance expectations for users. Right now, we have options that allow you to do HD, 3G, UHD over 12G, and HDR. And coming very early next year, we'll have IP support for 25G, allowing you both HD and UHD production, with supports for all of the SMPTE standards right out of the gate. So let's go a little bit deeper into some of the applications that we're going to see today. So we'll start with Maestro Designer. This is our real-time graphics authoring tool, which allows artists to take content from a variety of applications, whether this is Adobe After Effects or Adobe Photoshop, 3D Studio Max, etc., and bring this into a real-time graphics environment where they can combine this with real-time graphics elements and build things like lower thirds, over the shoulders, etc., quickly and easily. All of this can then be animated, and data fields can be exported so that content can be changed on the fly during the production. Video clips and images that are part of MediaCentral can be accessed from within Maestro Designer and used as part of the design process. Next slide, please, Craig. After content has been prepared inside Maestro Designer, this can be made available to the editorial team inside MediaCentral. All of these templates can then be accessed and used inside MediaCentral, whether they are just simply adding data and putting this into the production in the rundown, or whether they want to burn graphics and video together into a story that is going to be used by a MediaCentral publisher or played back on air. Graphics can also be tied to a video sequence and then updated live during playback with non-burned graphics. Next slide, please, Craig. So once this rundown has been built inside MediaCentral, it can be taken to air inside the Maestro News application. This is a full production application that allows the operator to control the graphics directly, seeing a full preview in the interface. And as they work through the rundown, they're shown the coming items ahead of the item that's on air. And this can be used to control any of the graphics, whether it's part of the broadcast stream or whether it's part of the studio environment, all from a single interface. Next slide, please, Craig. We also have the Maestro Live application. This is geared more towards sports production and events, which gives you an action-based, data-driven system. So actions in here can be used to drive multiple templates from one interface. And we have a lot of customers that use this particularly for sports because of the way that it works is more non-linear rather than rundown-based. Next slide, please, Craig. So now I'd like to hand over to Ola Koftan, who's going to give us a live demo of the workflow from Maestro Designer through MediaCentral and into Maestro News. Thank you very much. Ola, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So my name is Ola, and I will be showing you the basic overview on the Avid Maestro graphics workflow in general. With Avid Maestro graphics, it's easier to create graphics for any kind of production. As Martin said earlier, is it news or sports, live, or post-production? We will see how tightly Maestro is integrated into Avid environment and how it is used across the whole in every step of the production chain. So mainly I will be focusing on 3 steps: the creation of the graphics, preparation for the on-air, and the playout itself, wearing different hats. Either it's a designer or a journalist or even an editor and the playout operator. So we are starting from Maestro Designer. This is the user interface. For those of you who are not familiar, here in the middle, we see the preview of the scene, how it looks like, how it would behave. And we will be creating the whole scene from scratch right here. Or if it has created before, we will be connecting all together here. So on the left side, we will see the scene tree, or all the elements and the hierarchy of the scene will be created right here. Below is the settings for each and every component and asset inside the scene. And of course, here below, we see the assets, the primitive and the textures, all that is coming built in within the software to help us to create our graphics. So we can create 2D, 3D animated data-driven virtual graphics and augmented reality productions within this interface. From a single textures and primitives, we can create more complex animations like a skeleton animation. We can mix also 2D and 3D elements into one single scene, so it can fit into any production environment. But what if I already have the created graphics? So here I have the After Effects, and as mentioned Martin before, we can support 3D Maya, 4D Cinema, After Effects, as in my case, Photoshop, and even Illustrator, and many others. So we can create the graphics in those systems and bringing into Maestro Designer. So let's see, review this lava flow that I created in my After Effects. I have the two compositions that are mixed together in the final lava flow scene. I have some text export here, elements, some images, and I just imported into my designer as a scene. So let's take a look on it, how it looks like. Okay, so the scene is loaded. We can see that inside the scene tree, I can see the two compositions that I created earlier in After Effects. And I have the scene all together, all collected. So I have the reporter name, and if I expand it, I can see that there is a text. So from now on, I will be defining different changeable values, those values that I would like to change later on in the production stage. So things like text objects or images, for example, I can add, select different variety of textures like NDI texture. In this case, I can map this as a texture and receive the stream from my media composer or my send to playback production directly as a NDI input to my graphics on air. So the scene is done. We saving it, and as a designer, I will be creating the template for this scene. So I'm switching the application and I'm creating the template. So in this stage, I will be defining the playout logic, how it will behave on the playout. For example, it will be checking if there is some lava flow on air, it will trigger the out animation first, and then the item will be played. I will define the properties of the page, what changeable values I can add here, and so on. And once the template is created, we saved it into centralized database. And from now on, we can use it in every production step from now on. So to show you more how it's done, I'm switching to MediaCentral Cloud UX. And for those of you who are not familiar, this is the platform that provides the customers all the tools to get the work done and get the production done in faster and most collaborative way. So a few words on the interface. First of all, we're accessing it from the browser window, so I'm just using Chrome browser. On the left side, we have all the backend systems like production management. We have the media asset management, the newsroom management connected here, and Maestro News is also provided here. So at this point, I'm a journalist and I'm working on my graphics, on my story inside the newsroom. So I'm opening my NRCS. As you can see, for those, like this is iNews story. I have my news story expanded here. So this is the story body. And I'm creating the graphics. So I'm accessing my lava flow that I created earlier just by double click. It is expanded into my editing window where I can start editing the data. So you can see that on the flight, the preview generates a single image preview. So I can see the representation of my page. And another advantage of MediaCentral Cloud UX is that I really have all the tools that I need to use. So I want to add image, and the image is coming from the media asset management system, which is in my case called Archive. So I'm just selecting the image, drag and drop it to the template. The preview is generated on the flight. And of course, if I'm not sure about how the template will look like at the end, I can generate the whole animated preview just to have the full representation of my graphics. So coming back to my iNews story, the graphics is created. I just add it to my story and I save it. Okay. To use another example, I would like to switch to a different rundown. In this case, the rundown has a sequence assigned to it. So let me open the sequence. So you can see that this is the iNews story. I have the sequence, and I'm going to choose a different template. And just for better representation, allow me to switch the view. So this template has some configuration in it. So just by moving these slide bars, you can see that I'm changing the colors of the template. And not, well, basically. I can also define the virtual slot and the channel. So in Maestro Graphics, we have 255 virtual slots, which means I can actually play at the same time 255 graphics. I never saw it happening. So I'm defining the virtual slot for this item, and I define the channel from the list that I have. Okay, the graphic is ready. I want to add it to my sequence, and I'm just adding it on top of the video. I can adjust and move the template around the graphic on top of the video. I also have a representation of my graphic. So as a journalist, I can really be sure that everything I did was correct and no mistakes are done. So at this point, I will save my sequence. Both of my stories are prepared, and from here, I can choose to send to playback. So on send to playback, there are two ways. Again, we can burn the graphics and have these graphics burned with the video as a final result, and then we can, for example, use it for social media. Or we can decide to leave the graphics unburned and in the sequence, so we can use it for manual or automated playout later on. But what happens if I'm not an iNews user? So in this case, we have an HTML5 plugin. HTML5 plugin is very similar to what we saw just right now. It has the very similar look. You have the editing window, you have the access to the database of the templates, and you have the single and the animated preview is supported. So the structure is also based on the bus services, which is responsible for communication with the rendering platform and the media and data communication. And of course, all the connection integration with asset management and the metadata search is also supported from HTML5 plugin. Now, if I'm an editor and I'm working on a nonlinear environment like on Premiere or on Media Composer, well, I won't show this plugin, but very similar to what we just saw here in MediaCentral CloudUX. As an editor, I would have access to exactly the same graphics that is used for on-air live production, but they will appear as an effect into my plugin. The settings, the template settings, similar to color change, and the playout logic is accessible and can be modified from the NLE plugin itself. Well, at this point, I think we covered the graphics part, the creation of the templates, the preparation for the playout, and even the NLE part. So let's see how it's done with the playout. For this, I will go and switch to Maestro controller and switch to playout tab. Playout is a dedicated tab to manage the playout, which is reduced with the option just to focus on the playout operation. So a few words about the user interface and what we see. Maestro controller is a rundown-based playout controller system. Here in the middle, we can see the preview window. In our case, it will be also used as a playout. Here we can see the rundown areas. So all the rundowns that will be opened will appear here, and we can have a variety of rundowns. In this case, I have a manual rundown that I created myself, but it can be a rundown coming from NRCS systems, or for example, created by automation or called by automation device. Here we have the browser window. So this is my access to the templates database. And of course, if I choose any item, it's represented here for editing. And in this case, I have the macros script. We support macro scripts, which we can use to trigger different parameters inside the page or inside the templates, or like in this case, I can clean or call specific pages to on air and from on air. Those macros can be used or triggered by automation devices such as command, for example. So let's open an iNews rundown. So I have iNews connected to my Maestro controller. And I'm going to choose a rundown that I used, that I worked before. So you can see that the rundown is open in a split window. This is because I configured it this way. So I'm going to just expand it to the full window. You can see that rundown is going to have a long list, and there are some empty stories here. So one of the options that I could do, for example, is I could filter my rundown just to focus on the stories that have some content. So just by selecting this, it filters everything out, all the empty stories, and I only see the stories I need to focus on. Another option is the channel filtering. So we can see that I have several channels and some items assigned to this or to that. And if I need, for example, to see items only assigned to specific channel, I could trigger the channel filtering. So items that were assigned to other channel only were removed from my view. I think, well, it's endless to talk about Maestro, but I think it was a very basic overview on the workflow and on the application. Craig, back to you.
Yeah, that's great, Ola. Thanks very much. And thanks a lot for taking us really quickly through all the various different applications. As you mentioned, you could be talking about this for a long, long time as part of it, because there is so much to it and there's so much in depth from Maestro Designer to what you can do in Maestro News, and also obviously what's capable in MediaCentral Cloud UX as well. So thanks a lot for taking us through that. So Martin, if you want to come back on camera again, we have got a variety of questions that have come in. So thanks a lot for sending them in. As we mentioned before, if you're on the Zoom, pop them in the Q&A button there. If you're watching on social, then please feel free to submit them on social as well. So Ola, you've been talking for a little while, so we'll give you a little break. So Martin, we'll start off with a question for you. You talked at the start about the fact that the latest versions of Maestro are now going, software only, and there's some supported platforms. What's this update on the supported platforms there? Is it just one platform that we're supporting? Are there other ones that are coming on stream? What's the latest with that?
Sure, Craig. So right now we're supporting the Dell 7920 rack unit workstation, and this is kind of a large system. It's very good for UHD production or video wall production. We're aware that there'll be customers that maybe have simpler requirements or other constraints, such as working in an OB van. So we're about 2 days away from releasing support for the Dell 3930. This is a 1-rack unit workstation with a really short depth, so it's ideal for use in environments like OB-van. And probably in the first or second week of January, we should also be supporting the new HP Z-Central 4R, which is a really nice system from HP, which will be kind of like in between the two Dells in terms of the performance and capabilities.
Yeah,
so there'll be a full range of hardware available that customers can buy directly from the manufacturers or from system integrators, and we plan to add more systems over time, depending on customers' needs.
And I guess one of the questions that I guess is going to come from customers is, what if I've already got, my Maestro system set up? What is the sort of pathway for me, I guess? And I know that they're fully supported.
Exactly. The software that we have out now works on both the existing Maestro Engine hardware as well as the new off-the-shelf hardware. So for people that are using this in the control room, it's a completely transparent environment. They're not aware of which system they're really connected to, or they don't need to be aware of which system they're connected to. So if they've already working with Maestro graphics, it's a completely seamless introduction to move over to the off-the-shelf hardware.
Great. So a couple other questions that are coming in. Some of them are more news related, so I'll maybe take those and then we'll
Sure.
come back to you guys. So one of the questions is the rundown receivable via wire? So the way that the rundown is communicating with Maestro News is that the rundown within the iNews system is there's a background service called a monitor, and that service can be monitored on, and effectively what that does is it sends a playlist of instructions to the graphics controller to then build the playlist based on what's there. So you can have different modes that you can have, as Ola showed in the demo, where you can run effectively a rundown standalone, where you can take control of it, or you can have it tied to your newsroom system, where changes that are made in the newsroom system of rearranging stories and things like that, then the graphic system will just follow the instructions which are done there. So question for you, Ola, which is the filter of viewable items, can that be set up remotely, or is that something that you have to do on the actual machine itself?
In the rundown, you mean?
Yes, yeah.
So,
I think so. That's the question is, can the filter of viewable items be set up remotely? I'm guessing you showed how to filter different channels and different items which are there.
Yeah, well, normally, yeah, this is the option for manual operations. Normally, if you would like to control only one channel, you would use this option, but manual.
Yeah. Okay.
Into the rundown.
So, Martin, another hardware question that's come in, I don't know if you're able to answer this one, is
yes.
What's the processor speed type, which is the minimum required, and which ones are recommended? I mean, you spoke earlier on about the supported platforms.
So in the Dell 7920, it's going to be Intel Xeon, and in the Dell 3930, it's Intel i9. We publish the specifications in the product documentation, which is available from avid.com. So you can see all of the information there about what we recommend as the minimum specification for the platform, which is based on what we have tested with, so that we can give guidance about performance, whether it's video insertions, number of clips you're going to be playing on air. So you have a standard that you can work from, and you know what to expect when you work with this system.
Yeah, you touched on in the presentation about IP support, Martin. So I don't know if you can give us a little bit more detail about maybe when that's coming, and also what some of the benefits you think will be of having IP support.
So Avid has been part of the migration process that customers have for from SDI to IP. We've taken part in various interops over the last few years for IP, and obviously, as part of the move to the off-the-shelf hardware, we need to have an off-the-shelf card that allows us to do IP, support IP. So we'll be working with the NVIDIA Bluefield line of IP cards, which will give us dual 25G interfaces. So this is ideal for supporting SMPTE 2022-7, so you have a backup signal. And we'll be supporting the SMPTE 2110 standard, including -20, 30, and 40, probably from around about the end of March. although we should have a version available for beta testing a bit before that if there are customers that are interested. Of course, this allows customers to consider the migration from SDI over to IP. And because this is based on the same Dell hardware, customers can even start to work with SDI now, safe in the knowledge that the investment that they're making in this hardware is safe when they change over to IP by simply replacing the video I/O sometime in the future.
Yep, that's great. So I've got questions coming from John, who's watching the webinar here, and you've touched on it already, and it's about how this affects existing customers. So yes. I guess, we have a large install base, of course, of people using Maestro globally, so what reassurance can we give them about what this means for them?
So we have a trade-in plan available for customers that wish to move from Maestro Engine to the off-the-shelf hardware. Of course, they can continue to use the existing Maestro Engine hardware that they have in conjunction with the off-the-shelf hardware. None of that is going away as a result. Everything continues to be supported. It's just we found many customers were moving away from buying proprietary hardware and into a more, let's say, commoditized approach where they can buy from one IT vendor and source all of their hardware from one place. So we wanted to adopt this as well and allow customers to get support for their hardware from a single vendor much more easily.
Great.
So for existing customers, everything is supported. Everything continues to work as normal. You're just adding to it the flexibility of having off-the-shelf hardware.
Yep. So Ola, maybe a question for you to give Martin a little break. When using Maestro graphics in a MediaCentral sequence, you showed us there, Ola, and you talked about the different options that there are for sending to air either burned or non-burned. So it's a question around the burned graphics and workflow. Is there a specific server that's required to actually do the burning of the graphics in the background when doing the send to playback?
So we're using the transcode servers. The burn process is done in the process of transcoding. Nothing additional is not required, basically.
Yeah, exactly right. So yes, it's a transcode engine that runs in the background that's actually running the rendering itself. So that was a question there. A question from Agnes, who's joined, and she says, when you import an After Effects project into Maestro Designer, how does it behave when you have to put in such effects as red universe or stroke, for example? How does Maestro Designer play them too? So Ola, I'm not sure if you're able to answer that one.
Martin, would you take this?
Sure, of course. So we're not supporting third-party plugins inside After Effects. You can pretty much bring in the layer compositions and simple geometry, text, and animations, and then these will be supported inside Maestro Designer. We need to have like a corresponding feature in Designer that matches the feature in After Effects for it to be supported. In Adobe Photoshop, we have support for the PSD file format, which extends to supporting all of the layers, the blending effects, and also the fonts and text items in there. So you can build a graphic inside Photoshop as well and bring the whole thing over and then work with it directly inside Designer.
Great. So one of the other questions that comes up, Martin, about moving to software only, and I guess subscription, is what does this mean for perhaps customers who are looking at moving their infrastructure to the cloud? This is something that there's a lot of discussion about these days. So is this a pathway to help customers get to the cloud, I guess?
Yes, the part of this move to off-the-shelf hardware is also to set us up for future migrations to cloud production. Also, the move to IP is needed for this, and also we have support for NDI inside our rendering engine. So we already have a lot of the pieces in place. We just want to finish like the certification of all of the platforms that we have in the pipeline, and then we're going to work with the MediaCentral team on their News in the Cloud initiative to start verifying each of our components in this workflow.
Yeah, that's right. It's probably worth mentioning that, Avid has already qualified, some of our components running in a cloud environment for certain workflows, and that's an exercise that's continuing on as well. So you mentioned IP there again, Martin. So another question that's come in says that SDI to IP needs a big processor performance. Is there a render acceleration as a standalone device?
No, we have everything we're doing everything in the workstation with the IP card from NVIDIA. There is no external device connected. If I interpreted the question correctly,
that's the question as it was put. So that's the answer.
I did try to do my best there.
Yeah. So was another question that came in about new iPhone formats. That's something we need to establish a little bit more about. So the person who put that question in, if you want to explain a little bit about which formats that you're talking about there, is it the high efficiency codec ones? Then we can perhaps look at that and get back to you with an answer. So as things stand at the moment, there's no other open questions. So Ola and Martin, thank you very much for your time today. What I will do just to wrap things up a little bit is I'll come back to share my screen and just to finish things off. So we've looked at some of the key benefits of Maestro Designer. We've looked at the integration that we have within MediaCentral. We've also looked at some of the benefits that you can have for Craft Editor integration as well. But as well as these, maybe let's just summarize, what we've been talking about today, and look a bit deeper at what we've looked at. So Maestro Graphics is an end-to-end ecosystem going all the way from creation, design, production, and editorial all the way through to play out. It's now available as a software-only solution and is available through subscription. It has the tightest native integration with MediaCentral, available as a panel inside of MediaCentral Cloud UX for static preview and fully rendered preview, including on the timeline, so you can see your graphics in operation and in context as well. But more than just working with MediaCentral, it also works with other newsroom systems and with other, Craft Editor systems as well. So it's very much part of our openness story as well. Really important that it's maintaining compatibility with any content authored with previous versions of Maestro, and as Martin has indicated, there is an easy transition to move from your existing hardware to the newer platforms if that's something that you want to do, and it is part of that overall journey of moving to the cloud as well. Now, if you want to find out more about any of the solutions that we've talked about today, then please go to the Avid website. You can go to avid.com/maestro, and there you can get all of the latest information about the updates to Maestro Graphics. But for now, from me, from Ola, and from Martin, we want to say thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and from the Avid team, it's goodbye.